Hello everybody, welcome to another lesson video. Today we're going to talk about King of Kings, the song. We're going to talk about how to re-harmonize it, how to play different chords over it. And this is actually a topic requested by my patron Tim. And so Tim, this is for you, and hopefully you find this helpful. And for those other of you that's watching, hopefully you find this to be interesting as well. And how we're going to approach this is every single video we're going to take one or two small ideas and we're going to break them down a little bit more in depth, and so that you can take that one idea and you can apply it to your own chords and your own songs, and you can try to reharmonize some of your own tunes. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. As you may know, the song King of Kings is one of those hymn-like songs, and so it has, I think, 3 or 4 verses, and every time it repeats, the lyric changes, but the chords and the harmony doesn't. The chords and the melody doesn't change. And these are great songs to do reharmonization because, as I've mentioned in a few of my previous videos, you can use the chords to reflect what's going on in the story, and that's my favorite reason and motivation for changing chords. So today we're going to take a look at just 1 or 2 concepts that I have used in one of my Lo-Fi remixes in the verses. So now let me play through the verse and let's see how it goes from there, okay? And so as you can tell, the melody and the chords, they repeat for 3 or 4 times for the verses. The chords is simply this. The first chord, we're in the key of D. The first chord is a D major chord, but in an inversion. So D over F sharp. The second chord on the 3rd beat is the G chord, the 4 chord. And then the next chord in the second bar is the 5 chord, A. And it backs to D, and then it restarts 1 over 3, and the whole verse basically just repeats, I think. Right, yeah. And so does the melody, it also repeats. So this is a great tool or great song to reharmonize because the chords repeat a couple of times. So let's go to the first concept, or the first tip that I have for you in reharmonization. The first approach is simply adding extensions to your triads. So let's talk a little bit about what extensions are first. So in Western harmony, when we build our chords, they are built out of triads, they're built out of thirds. So usually a D major chord, for example, you see they're separated by a third, D, F sharp, and A, and you have 3 notes. And you can actually add more notes that's separated by the third, and this is usually what jazz harmony begins doing. So you can add a 1, 3, 5, and you can add another third above to the 7th. That gives you a D major 7 chord, and you can go on to add another third above, which gives you a 9. And if you're really ambitious, you can go 11th or 13. Right, so that's those are extensions. Everything above the 1, 3, 5 are called extensions. I'll give you another example. So if we go G major, the 4 chord in D, you can add a third above the 5th. So you would go here, which gives you a 7th, G major 7th chord. Add another third, it gives you a 9. Another one above. This is the sharp 11 or the 11th, and then another one is 13, G major 13 now. And if you add another one, that brings you back to the root 15, but nobody really calls it 15, and nobody really uses it like this anymore. So those are extensions. Everything above the 5th is extensions. And one of the first things that I try to do in reharmonization is see whether, if the existing chord progression is nice enough, or they're pretty sufficient enough. There's nothing I need to change. One of the things that I would do first to make it a little bit richer is to add extensions, and in fact that is what I have done. So if we take that chord progression, let's just do D, G, A, D. right? Let's take out that D over F sharp at the beginning. Let's do D, G, A, D. The 1, 4, 5, 1. What happens if we start adding extensions onto those? Let's take a look. And so what I've done is I've added sevenths into the chords, and I added for every single one of them. But as with always, like if you just use that same tool and just apply it to every single thing, that might not sound the best. And so for me, what I've done for the first 4 bars of my reharmonization, I have done it like this. So what I've done is I actually have not added anything on the 1 chord. I have not added anything to the second one. I added for the 5 chord, I added the 7th, and I added also the 9, but as you can see, it's a flat 9. The normal 9 would be here, 7, octave 9. In the key, this is a flat 9. So I'm borrowing it from other keys, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. And then on the last D major chord, I'm adding a major 7th onto it. If I wanted to, I could add a 9 or that. So immediately you can tell the difference, especially by adding that flat 9. The A7 flat 9 chord, and also to the D major 7. It makes the chord sound a lot more richer. There's more depth into it, and that's the first thing you could do. You can do extensions onto your existing chords, especially if your chords, you like your existing chords and you just want to enrich them a little bit more. Let's give you one more tip, which is a little bit of a similar concept, but extended in another way. So this second tool, or second tip to reharmonization, is called parallel harmony. Parallel harmony. This is something that I do often. And essentially the concept is this. Parallel harmony, not to be confused with parallel voicing, and that's another thing. So parallel harmony, what that means essentially is that for every single chord, you have a parallel of the chord. You have 2 parallels. In fact, you have like 2 cousins, I guess you could call it. Every single chord, every single triad that you have 2 cousins, 2 related. And those 2 related chords have the similar function. So you can freely substitute one for another for most of the cases. So if we take the chord G, the 4 chord that we have, you will see that the E minor chord and the G chord shares 2 of the same notes, and this is why E minor is one of the parallel chord, one of the related cousins of G, because they share 2 of the same notes, the G and the B in this case, and it will give your ears the similar function. It will tell your ears, hey, this is a similar related chord, so you can freely substitute those. And another way to understand it is if you understand it from the extension point of view. So if you play E minor 7, you will realize the G major is actually on top of the E. And so that is also why you can freely substitute them, is because when you add some extensions to your chords, you will end up having the same chords on the top, which then you'll give a similar sound, and you can freely substitute those. So this E minor is one of the parallel of G. And for every chord, there's 2 parallels. So there's also 1 on top of G. So if you ask yourself, okay, well, what other chord in our key right now shares the 2 of the same notes? And you will see that if you just go another third up, this B minor has 2 of the same notes as G, B and the D. So they are parallels of each other, and you can freely substitute them. And again, if you understand it from the extension concept, if you do a G and you add an extension, G major 7, you will find that the B minor chord is actually nested above the G. And so that's why they're parallels. And so this is, in fact, what I've done for the G chord. Remember, the original chord progression was this. The second chord is G. I didn't quite like that because the melody and the bass note end up to be the same note. And it sounds a little too straightforward for me. So what I've done is I've substituted with the parallel, which is the E minor. And if you don't change anything on the top, you realize that automatically gives you a chord with extensions on it, which is the E minor 7. E, G, B, 7th. And so the first 2 bars goes like this. So as you can tell, those 2 tips, adding extensions and parallel harmony, they don't really drastically change the sound of your chord, but it does make the same chord progression a lot richer, a lot more interesting by adding extra notes or, switching the bass notes around parallel harmony. So this is one of the most common and simplest way to reharmonize an existing tune. So hopefully this tool is helpful to you. This tip is helpful to you. Take that tip and use it in your songs and experiment around with it. Hopefully this is going to be interesting and helpful to you. And if you enjoy this video, let me know in the comment section down below. Leave me a like, and let me know in the comment section if you have any other questions, if you have any suggestions, any questions that you would like me to answer in terms of harmony and chords and stuff like that. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.